Hello, writers. Come write with me. My name is Michaela Greenwood. I create worlds for mind adventures. Welcome to my channel, Write with Michaela. Don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the bell so you can go on this journey with me. If this is your first time joining me, then I'm excited to have you here on my channel. If you've been with me from the beginning or somewhere along the journey, I am glad you are returning. Today is story time, or the day of our chapter exchange. If you're writing with me and you wish to exchange chapters, then send your chapters with written permission to writewithmichaela@gmail.com. I will post the email address at the end of the video and in the description below. I am looking forward to reading your chapters. All chapters are writing prompts read on the channel, whether they are mine or another writer's work, are copyright protected material, and no one may use any part in writing their own stories. This story is PG-13. So if you are under 13 years of age, you need parental guidance. The story is in its rough draft stage, just as the last stories we've heard. The title of the story is Elloni's Pride, and today we are reading chapter 1 out of book 2. If you would like to read along, then send to the email I stated earlier and request a PDF of the chapter. Make sure you are specific. Also, if you want a PDF of any script that I do, that would be fine as well. If I'm reading someone else's work, however, I will not be giving PDFs of their work. So, just thought I'd let you know that. Now, let's start Elloni's Pride, Book 2, Regrouping, Chapter 1, Checking In. King Damantade, a powerful and tyrannical king, ruled over his Kingdom Drothstrom, and his village, Underwood Village. He feared the prophecy coming true, so he always had his soldiers visit Underwood Village on the night of the full moon in order to find the linkers the village hid from him. He, of course, went at other times to collect taxes in the form of food from the villager's garden. He also taxed another kingdom for food, since the food from the village wasn't enough. Then the king learned that prophecy had written 3 words before the night of the full moon. And those 3 words meant one day before. King Damantade was furious and sent his soldiers one night before the full moon. And that happened to be the same night that Libya's symbol lit up on her arm to let her know her dragon had hatched. Many years before this, King Damantade had arrested the last known linker, and he kept him alive, so he would know when the dragons hatched. His soldiers reported to him that the symbol lit up, so he was furious with his soldiers when they didn't return with the linker or the baby dragon. So he sent them again in the middle of the day and told the soldiers to burn down the homes so any person hidden would die. Libya had escaped through a tunnel attached to her family's cellar in the first night. But the 2 other linkers were still in the village. Bradley knew the linkers, and he helped them get out and away before the soldiers' day visit. But after the soldiers left, there was no hope left in Underwood Village. Not only had the soldiers burned the homes, but they had trampled the garden, so there was no food left growing. The people had their stores, but the stores were for winter. Several people and families left the village, but they didn't know where to go. Thankfully, they found wild food along their journey. Still, Libya and Lydia, her twin, went west, with Lydia following a day behind, And unbeknownst to them, the rest of their family went southwest. A group of children and later some adults went south. Bradley and the 2 linkers with him went east. So none who left were together or heading the same way. None went north, because King Damantade was to the north of the village. Then more children had their symbol appear and shine. So the ones who left were aware of even more linkers, and they were thankful to not be in the village anymore. At this point, the new linkers didn't realize everything. They were just glad to be alive and away from the soldiers, from where the soldiers would kill them. Fortunately, a few days after the first dragon, Elloni, hatched, Browser managed to escape prison. But unfortunately, King Damantade blamed Kingdom Dripston for harboring Browser. So King Damantade attacked Kingdom Dripston Kingdom, and forced that kingdom into hiding as well. This is where the story starts today. Elloni thought to Libya, "What's going on? You seem very distracted." "My symbol keeps lighting up," thought Libya. "I just counted 5 or 6 times. I'm not sure, because it was like the symbol couldn't start or something once. But I thought we already counted 7 dragons. My paw said 10. 7 plus 5 would be 12, I think. I don't remember the math real fast like my paw. And if it was 6, then that would be 13. Did my paw not know the right number?" Bitsy thought in. "I wouldn't say your paw didn't know the right number, especially since it is more. I would say your paw didn't have all the information, which is usually what happens. The prophets see a lot, but they don't see everything. And 12 or 13 dragons is a better number than 10, thought Elloni. Don't worry on it. And when we land, you can connect with nature and see if you can connect to the new baby dragons." Libya nodded her head without thinking that Elloni couldn't see her. She wanted to drift off into thought and find the babies now. But she put her concentration to holding on. She had seen her sister fall, and that was as close to falling as she wanted to get. Browser had stopped, taken off the armor on his arm. He stared down at it as the light on his symbol just faded. "I should have brought Cervic with me. Either I can't count or I'm missing some prophecies." He looked at Dronsnide and asked, "How many is that?" "How many was it before you removed the armor?" thought Dronsnide in return. 3 or 4, replied Browser. 3 or 4? asked Dronsnide. "Yeah. It was almost like the baby was like, 'I'm hatching.' 'No, I'm not.' 'Yes, I am. I'm hatching.' You know, a yes-no thing. Yes-no, yes thing. Can't make up your mind." Dronsnide looked at Browser very unenthusiastically. "A dragon can't undecide to hatch?" Browser shrugged his shoulders. "I don't know. I guess it was 4 dragons hatched before I could get the stupid armor off." "You called the armor stupid?" "No, not really. It was 4. So what total do you have?" 13, thought Dronsnide. "Okay. How am I supposed to find all these dragons and people? Where do I take them once I find them? Should we fly to some old kingdoms before we find them to scout things out?" "We could, but how are you going to bring them with you?" thought Dronsnide. "I can bring Bradley with you, but I can't bring baby dragons." Suddenly, Browser got an idea. "You can bring me and whomever I put in my pocket. When you were tiny, you were tiny when I shrank you." He laughed a little. "If I shrink Bradley that much, I may not be able to find him to put him in my pocket." "Then you wouldn't have to hide Bradley. You could just put him in your pocket when you go into the next kingdom." Browser sighed and strapped back on his armor. "Yeah, except I have no pockets." Come on, let's keep walking. There's no rest for the weary. Browser headed through the trees, and Dronsnide followed along. I think we will find a dragon soon, thought Dronsnide. I feel vibrations. Browser glanced back at Dronsnide, and Dronsnide didn't seem alarmed, so he didn't worry about it. I feel funny, thought Hagar. My scales are rattling. Rattling, is that a word? Do you understand me? Bradley spotted a rattlesnake ahead on the ground. Nobody move. Hagar, back up a little. I see what you mean about a rattlesnake. He glanced down at the boy's feet. He hadn't finished the shoes yet, and while leather wouldn't protect against a snake bite, it would be better than nothing. I see it, said Broman. He pushed his dragon back. Back up. Broman glanced over his shoulder at Coulter. You too, back up. Snakes won't follow you like a boar. We can go around. Bradley nodded. Good idea. Just keep an eye on it. No one listen to me, thought Hagar. My scales rattle. I feel funny shaking. Bradley looked at the boys, and he could feel vibrations from them. Hagar, I don't hear your scales rattling, but I'm sure you feel vibrations. I feel vibrations too. The vibrations are from the boys, he motioned. Both Coulter and Broman looked at him. Then Broman went back to watching the snake. I know the lingers because I feel vibrations within me when I'm around them. Now, we can't tell anyone about that because then King Diamante would make me a hunter for him. I no say a word, thought Hagar. How do I make it stop? You get away from the boys or just get used to it, stated Bradley. Let's move around the snake and then we can rest a bit and I'll work on the shoes. And I'm going to make the letters for snake, stated Broman. What letter is sn? Bradley thought a couple of minutes. I think we have to combine letters, like bruh, on the front of your name and my name. I remember that was B-R. So snow would be S and... S? Said Coulter. We don't have that letter. Oh, I know the other letter, said Broman. It's in my name. I used to mix up my two letters, M and N, but my pa spelled my name in many of his designs. What happened to all his designs? Asked Bradley. Broman shrugged. I don't know. I think some of the wood ones we used as firewood. No evidence thing. But the leather ones, I'm not sure. If you didn't know the letters were there, you wouldn't see them. I think my ma didn't know how to read because I asked my pa one time what she thought. And he said she didn't know he put the letters in the design. She just thought they were designs. Bradley glanced at Coulter, and he said to Broman, if she couldn't read, then she would see the letters, but you just said the letters were hard to see unless you knew they were there. So maybe she just didn't look for them. Maybe, said Broman as he shrugged. What if we spell snake wrong? Asked Coulter. Well, snake is in the common tongue, stated Bradley. Anything we spell in the old tongue, I will verify with Soflin, so we get it right. Coulter nodded, and they moved around the snake in their path. Elloni lighted down, and Valdian followed shortly behind her, but Fraquez had dropped quite a way back. Libya dismounted and let her sister, Soflin, and Keechan out and stopped the charm she had on Keechan. She didn't know why they had stopped, but then she saw Fraquez as a dot in the sky behind them. Soflin reached out and grabbed Lydia's sleeve. Bradley wants my attention, so I'm going to sit down. She walked a little away and sat. Libya looked at her sister for answers. She cast a charm on him, stated Lydia. They communicate that way. Oh, replied Libya as she sat down. Lydia turned and looked for her dragon. When he landed, she saw that it was not smooth at all, and Fraquez looked very tired. Lydia went to her dragon and stroked him. We will rest here for a bit, Fraquez thought. Me tired. He lay down on the grass and was almost instantly asleep. Soflin thought to Bradley, why would you need to know how to spell snake? Did a snake bite you or one of the linkers? Do you need the word snake in the old language? Bradley thought to her how Broman wanted to spell that word, and he didn't know an order to teaching, so he figured he would go with Broman's interest, especially since the one word he truly knew how to spell was his own name. Soflin then spelled snake for him and explained the vowels. Then she told him she could help him spell most any word he wanted because she had her books with him. Bradley remembered her saying something like that before, and he asked, how did she do that? And she asked him if he remembered the charm for small. Then she told him how she was riding in Libya's pocket and they were going to the tailor's. Bradley didn't think Hagar could fly that far yet, and Soflin told him they were letting Fracas rest because he was smaller than an adult dragon. And she explained how Elloni was much bigger than Fracas and Baldian, but she too was an adult, or an adult size. Then Bradley left her to her thoughts, and she looked around. She shook her head to herself. Her conversation with Bradley made her more aware of how much teaching and training they needed to do. They might need to gather in a group and leave for 10 years. Then she thought, if they could leave and live on their own for 10 years, why would they need to come back and fight King Damantade? She didn't have an answer, and she didn't see the point, but figured the universe would provide the answer when it was time. Browser walked out into the meadow. He glanced back at Dronsnide. Shall we fly to the pond? Fly? It seems just a jump, teased Dronsnide in return. What about Bradley? This is the best place to look for him. He headed east from his village. At least from the conversations I've had with him, I think that's right. This is an open meadow to the east of his village. He could come out anywhere along those woods. We'll jump over to the pond near the trees. I'll find a rock and eat my hazelnuts. Bradley will come out, I'll shrink him, and we'll be on our way to another kingdom. You sound a lot more positive than you have recently. That's good. I like that. Browser climbed on Dronsnide, using a charm he suddenly remembered to make little stair steps on the ground. Soon they were near the pond, and Browser found a rock, to which he exclaimed, Look! Just as I predicted, today is my lucky day. Bradley will be along soon. Hector's group made it to the pond. The sun was going down, but they still had plenty of light. Look, said Frolin, anyone could see these tracks. Suddenly the charms they had cast on themselves stopped, and they all jumped as they suddenly saw each other once again. They dropped hands and looked around. It was good to see the other people, and it felt like they had escaped. But they all knew the soldiers could return quickly on their dragons. The adults let the children down, and the children went to the edge of the water. We need to drink all that we can, stated Charmin. We have no water containers. We might find a couple if we look, stated Lomar. I have found several here. Usually they need patching, but we could patch them and use them the next time we find water. Moktor and Sanson, let's look for water sacks, he said to his boys. Charmin's little girl, Monty, was reaching up to him and whining. That's when he realized he hadn't heard her in a while. He glanced at Vixie and started to ask, but he couldn't form the sentence. The word worked, stated Vixie to his unspoken question, and I will never lose another child because they cry. The word was Ortonste. So at the end of the charm, you say Ta Ortonste, and that protects from hearing as well as sight. Charmin nodded and lifted up his little girl. I will remember that. Monty is a fussy one. Hector was looking at the ground and walking in circles. There seems to be a lot of tracks. Yes, I agree, stated Frolin, as he squatted down and parted the grass. But it seems the newest ones are heading to the right. That makes sense, stated Hector. Trenton knows the lowest and slowest water is to the right. Then Hector looked in the direction that other tracks had come from. I don't think these belong to our children. Look, they're coming from over there. Lomar's sons came running up with 3 water sacks each. Lomar took them and looked them over. He was confident he could patch them. if he had a bit of leather. So he tied them onto his belt. I'm not going with you, stated Hector. Trenton is a man now, and he got those children across the pond. Hector, started Sharman. Hector held up his hands. I've made up my mind. He pointed to the tracks from the other directions. I'm not going for my wife and Pa. I'm going for the rest of the children. If I can get my wife and Pa to come, I'll bring them. But the children, Sharman sighed. You do what you think you need to do. I think Trenton is a fine young man, and he can do a lot. But it takes a lot for as many of the children for as many children as he has. I know Trenton's not alone, and Aldemnia will do her part. But Trenton is part of my village, and I'm going to help him. Thanks, man, said Hector, as they shook hands. I know you will, and as you said, we all have a part. Maybe my part is getting people out. I brought Sassy and Frolin to the group. Not that they were that far behind, but I gave them the words and brought them. I will bring you another group of children. They patted each other on the back, and Hector followed the other set of tracks back to the village. Sharman looked around at his group. He knew they would have followed Hector, but now they were going to look to him. His gaze stopped on Vixie, and instantly he knew he would depend on her. He knew in his heart that she had kept the soldiers from hearing Monty, and that had probably saved all of them. He knew that since she remembered the word, and it worked, then she would be thinking on all the words she had learned as a child, and those words, he now knew, were a matter of living and dying. Trenton looked around at his group. The light was fading, and the older children were slowing from carrying the younger children. Then he stepped into a more open area in the woods. Let's stop here, he said. We'll start again in the morning. Maybe Kosher will communicate with me again. So the children filtered through the open space and found a place to sit down and eventually lay down and sleep through the night. Not long afterward, Kosher thought to Trenton, we stopped for the night. About half the day we walked on an open meadow. Of course, we're going slowly with the little ones, but Hoshman believes there is a pond out here, so we didn't stay near the tree line or mountain ridges. Do you know where you are? Not really, thought Trenton. We didn't stay straight like you said, but later I realized that you meant you walked in the water away and didn't go straight out the other side. We are leaving tracks, but some of us strapped bark to our feet. I'm thinking we should have waited until we all had bark, because the mark from the bark leaves a track of sorts. We haven't worried about tracks so much, thought Kosher. I guess because we did walk in the water, which was a bit scary because there were holes you couldn't see, and the water was strong against my legs. I mean, not too much, but still more than the air on solid ground. I understand. We're going to be going through a lot of different things, so I think it is good to share. Maybe the water wouldn't be strong against me, but I need to think about it because it would be strong against Jovel. Yes, we carried the smaller ones, but we still had Kempton and Corton walking through the water. Kosher, I need to know that I can trust you. I'm on my own here, with no adults. How would I tell about you without first admitting that I cast a charm? Thought Kosher. Fair enough. We have 6 linkers among us. What? Wow! We have 2, and Bradley has 2. That makes 10. That's good to hear. That means all 10 linkers are out and alive. Then Kosher thought to himself that he hadn't counted Libya, and that would make 11. Then he thought back to Trenton. The linkers should get thoughts from their dragons, much like we're doing now. Tell them the dragons are babies, and they'll have to, I don't know, console the baby dragon like a younger sibling. Also, the linker will feel pulled. Like they will feel something physical within them to lead them to the dragon. So they may want to leave your group, or leave the group. One linker in our group wanted to leave, but Hoshman knew the lay of the land and knew there would be mountains and that the linker might not find the dragon on this side and might have to go around. So the linker agreed to stay with our group for now, and I'm glad for that. I feel like we're both purposely leaving out information, thought Trenton. I sat with my back to a fire, and no one in the village said a word to the soldiers about any linkers, and the soldiers still burned down our homes. Now, maybe they would have spared the homes if someone spoke, but I'm guessing they wouldn't have. My pa didn't even get a decent grave. Yeah, I saw that. I'm sorry about that. We will work to make things right. It may take a while, especially since we have no adults to teach us. I want us to be as open as we can, and I agree that we won't share certain information between us. Just knowing that some other villagers are out and alive is great for me, and I have Hoshman, his wife, and my ma. I'll share what I can. Do you keep watch? We try to, thought Kosher. It's harder than it sounds in the stories. I remember thinking how Belar was just lazy when he fell asleep while posting watch. And when the story said he died, I thought, well, if he had done his job, he might have lived. I remember that story, thought Trenton. Like I thought earlier, it's harder than it sounds. We try to post watch, especially because we don't know how far the soldiers patrol, but if you're successful, even if only partially, then when you walk the next day, you're tired and not fully alert. Makes sense. Is there anything that I should know for my group? And can I think with you, or do I have to wait for you? And there is a way to be small, but I don't know the words yet. And I believe you can think with me as well. I get thoughts from Thrasher and Lithia. Now, Lithia's were more along the line of, my ball. And Thrasher's were, I want to play. So nothing important. However, my mom knew when Lithia was going to grab mushrooms. I don't know if it was mother instinct or if she heard some thoughts or saw a picture in her mind, but she stopped Lithia. The mushrooms were safe, but you get the point. Trenton sighs. Yes, but you've added another worry to my list. We will see if we can cast the charm to connect the smaller ones. Thanks. Hey, give me those words again to make sure I know them. Kosher carefully gave the words again as he put them once again in his own memory. Then they disconnected. Okay, writers, that is the end of chapter 1. If you have been with me, then you can see how this book started, where the other one left off. But at the beginning of the chapter, you heard how I reintroduced the story to people. That way someone could actually start with book 2. They wouldn't have to read book 1. I mean, they might want to go back and see everything that happened, but they could pick up book 2 and kind of know where they are in the story and start there. Now, leave a comment on if you're scared of snakes, or if you know you can just go around them. For most snakes, I believe they are more scared of you than you are of them. But the time to fear the snakes, the poisonous snakes, the time to fear them the most is when they come out of hibernation. And they don't see so well yet with their eyes, and they're sensing things with their tongues, and they will strike a lot more at that point. They can't see. And this is like in the first rains of the spring. They hibernate by burying themselves in the mud. And then in the spring, when the mud kind of loosens up, and they come out and they sunbathe to warm up. And at least that's what I believe. I'm not a animal studier or anything like that, but from being around them when I was younger, I think that's what it was. That's what I was told. So when they come out of hibernation, they've got some kind of protective film over their eyes or skin over their eyes, and they can't see yet. And so they just will strike if they're scared. So, do you fear snakes? Or do you know that you could just go around and they're not going to bother you? I've almost stepped on a snake before. And one of my daughters rode her bike over a snake, and then she panicked. That snake that she rode over just darted away. It was like, you know, of course the bike wasn't heavy enough to squish it or, you know, to kill it like a car tire. But, and the snake she ran over was a corn snake. It wasn't a poisonous one. The snake I almost stepped on was a cottonmouth. I had on my cowboy boots, which offer a bit of protection, but, you know, it depends on where they decide to strike, because some of the snakes can jump up a little bit more, higher than the boot anyway. So, leave a comment on if you're scared of snakes, or if you've handled snakes, or whatever. Are you one of those type of people that when you go to the zoo and they have the house of the snakes and have all of the cages, you're just like, I'm not going in there at all? Or if you go in there and you're like, oh, where's the snake? I want to see. And then, you know, or maybe you're one of the people who know, like, the difference between a milk snake and then it's not a coppermouth, coral snake. I think that's the other one. So one has the red and yellow next to, the stripes are red, yellow, and black, and one has the red and yellow next to each other, and that one is the poisonous one. Is the red and yellow kill a fellow. And the other snake, the milk snake, has the red, yellow, and black, but the black is in between the red and the yellow, so the red and the yellow don't touch, and so you can know that snake is not poisonous. Well, that's just a little bit that I know. I'm sure some of you know quite a bit more about snakes than I know. You know, like a rat snake is also black like the cottonmouth, but it doesn't have the white in its mouth, and it's not poisonous. And a cottonmouth is poisonous. You know, snakes can swim. Snakes can be in trees and just drop down. I don't know what you know, but if you're writers, then you need to know a little bit. You can just watch the Discovery Channel, or go visit the zoo, or get one of those, what's it, DK encyclopedias or something. They have like these little books, maybe $13. Maybe some of them are like $8, but they're thinner, not that long thin ones. But then there's the thicker ones. They're like $13, and they have pictures and pictures and pictures. They're great books to look at. You can look at the pictures of the snakes and all the colors of the snakes, and then they'll tell you about the ribs of the snake and the teeth of the snakes, and you can learn a lot of information about a lot of different subjects from those little bitty encyclopedia books. They have snakes, they have birds, they have bugs, they have all kinds of different little books. So, you know, if you don't go out in the woods, and you don't go on the mountain trail, or you don't go to the zoo, find some information somehow to learn about these things. You can always add these kinds of things to your story. It's very easy to add a snake. Now, snake wasn't a big deal. They saw the snake. They went around the snake. The only reason they noticed it was because Hagar said his scales were rattling, which had nothing to do with the snake. It had to do with Dronsnide, which was now closer to him. Dronsnide felt him, he felt Dronsnide, but nobody puts that together yet. They will later, but then they saw the snake. So it's just a little piece, add a little bit into the story, fill out the story a little bit, see what they're going through the woods, that kind of thing. So if you know a little bit about snakes, like Roman was like, they don't chase you like a boar. We can just go around. So he's not scared. He's not going to go pick it up, but he's going to go around. So leave a comment on if you're scared of snakes, or if you notice to go around them, or if you have studied snakes, or if you know, whatever your affiliation with snakes, or how much you know about snakes. Just leave a little tidbit of a comment below, and that will be great. And if you don't know anything about snakes, then at least go get you can probably check it out at the library or whatever. Just get one of those little DK encyclopedias, and I think there's other brands too. You get one of those encyclopedias and read a little bit about snakes, and then you'll know a little bit about snakes, about how often do they shed their skin and that kind of thing, and why did they shed their skin? Well, it's because they're growing, but then you can read. Maybe you're not going to write a movie like Anaconda. In that movie, they found the skin of one of those big old anaconda snakes. They found the skin, and it was just like, okay, the snake is here somewhere. Maybe you're not going to be that into it, but you could add it to your story. Great. Now, leave a comment on the first word you remember reading. Mine were probably The Cat in the Hat, or green eggs and ham. Certainly not snake. And what was the first word you learned to read? Was it your name? Did you learn to read your name first? Did you learn cat, hat, sat, mat? Did you learn green eggs and ham, Sam, I am? What were the first word or words that you learned to read? Leave a comment on what you thought when Dronside said, a dragon can't undecide to hatch. I enjoy putting things like that in stories because I think it adds a little humor. Like, it's like he's a yes, no, yes thing. And Dronside's like, no. And so I think that's a little funny, and I like to add a little humor to the stories. As I was reading, I was thinking of something else that I was going to say, and I don't remember what it was. But if you want to add some other extra comment to this video, then please do so. Join me Tuesday for us to get a little jargon and for us to add to a downed soldier. And join me Friday for Elloni's Pride, Book 2, Regrouping, Chapter 2, Nighttime Rituals. Visit my website, bymckella.com, and read some character bios. If you read something, leave a comment on which ones you've read. Don't forget to hit the like and the subscribe and the bell so we can continue to write together, and other people will have a higher chance of finding this video and this channel, since your likes will push the video out to a greater audience. We can have a bigger community, lots more writers, more stuff to read on the channel, more fun to have. So hit your likes and subscribe. Thank you for joining me today. I really appreciate your participation. If you know someone who would like this video, please share it with them. This was chapter 1, so this would be a great place to start. This is Mckella with Write with Mckella. Bye for now.